Hey, everybody, welcome to Gift of Gab podcast. I, of course, am your host, Gab, more affectionately known as Miss G. And today we have a special guest. Sorry about that, y'all, little technical difficulties there. We have a special guest, my classmate and friend since, like eighth grade, ninth grade, something like that?
Seventh or eighth grade, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, Matt, you getting old, not me. That's just not But special guest Matt here on the episode today. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. How you feeling?
Feeling good. Feeling good.
Yeah, Did you get your shot yet?
Yeah, I got my first shot on Monday.
How you feeling?
Feeling good. I had like a sore arm, but that's about it. Like nothing crazy. Like no crazy side effects or anything.
Good. That's how we like it then. Very good. So ladies and gentlemen, we have Matt here today to discuss something that's super important, but I think that a lot of us we fall off. We don't pay attention to this particular subject. Today's episode is called Politics After the President. Now, I'll tell you guys, I chose Matt for this episode because ever since I've known him, he has been very aware of the political system, of the judicial system, just anything to do with America. I have known him to be one of the people who have been more involved in it since early on. So we're gonna go ahead and dive right in. So just to get a little background about you, Matt, here, kind of when did your interest in politics start? What sparked that interest for you?
So pretty early age, just looking at like our local politics where we grew up, the state politics and national politics, and trying to kind of make heads or tails of like a lot of the hypocrisy. Like so many politicians, they say one thing, they do another, and just looking at where I stood politically, and diving into that, because where we're from, most people fall to one side, and I started just being critical of both sides actually now, and looking at how the double speak, the like I said, what they say one thing and they do another, like completely.
And that's huge, right? Hypocrisy in politics.
Yeah. And it's been, and that's kind of been my political journey since I became aware of politics. We grew up in Palm Beach County, so we got a kind of a crash course when we were in fifth grade in how crazy politics can be with the whole butterfly ballot thing, and so
took something so beautiful and made it so ugly. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So exactly. I remember because I went to a different elementary school. I remember back in elementary school that they did like a mock voting thing for us.
We did the same thing.
That's where I got kind of my spark my interest about politics. Like I remember those moments very vividly. Every single year we did like a mock vote, and we were voting for people like George Washington and Frankenstein and stuff like that.
I think ours at Bear-Blade Elementary was George Bush and Al Gore. So we actually did George Bush and Al Gore. Growing up now, being grown up now, like realizing that there's actually more people on the ballot than those two people. I think it was a little bit unfair. Like, you would think they would teach us that, as an introduction to politics, but no.
No, they really only teach us Democrats and Republicans. No Green Party, no independent. They don't teach us about those things. So no, this was not a part of my original question lineup, but since that just came up, why do you think that's so? Why do you think they only teach us those two parties?
Well, a lot of people have this false notion that, a third party can't win. And Democrats and Republicans have basically a monopoly on elections.
Absolutely.
They, like if you look at the presidential election, to qualify for the presidential debates, a third-party candidate has to be polling at 15%. So obviously, Democrat and Republican are each going to be polling at more than 15%. So they're in.
Right.
The problem is the polls that they ask the polls that they use for the debates don't even ask about third-party candidates.
Wow.
So how is a candidate going to poll at 15% if you don't even ask? So
now, I never knew that. I never knew that. Okay.
Like how, if they don't even ask about, this past time around, Joe Jurgensen was a Libertarian candidate, Howie Hawkins was the Green Party candidate. The polls left those candidates out, so they can't poll at 15% to get into the debates. And I do believe that, like, if third-party candidates are allowed into debates, I think they can make some traction. Look at what happened with what's his name in 1990, the 92 election. We had an independent candidate that basically pretty much helped Bill Clinton win the election. Bill Clinton might not have been president if it weren't for what was now it's going to bother me.
I feel like I should know this name, but I don't. I feel like it's something that I'm gonna be like, oh, that's who that was. Like, I feel like his name is on the tip of my tongue.
Ross Perot.
Ross Perot.
Ross Perot. Basically, like, he stole. Well, I wouldn't say stole, but he took more votes from George H.W. Bush than he did from Bill Clinton.
Wow.
And it's arguable that if he hadn't been in the race, George H.W. Bush might have won that election.
Wow.
And ever since then, there's been this big push to basically silence third-party candidates. So that's kind of why you don't see, we don't get taught about that. Kids don't get taught about third-party candidates. Like, people grow up literally thinking that it's only Republicans and Democrats, that no one else exists, no other parties exist.
I am one of those people. I grew up thinking that, and I didn't know it until I got older. Actually, I would say probably not until college. I didn't even, I think I knew there were other parties, like, once I became of age, but I didn't realize the impact that they had on politics, or could have. Like, it really didn't dawn on me, because, of course, all I'm thinking is Democrat and Republican. So that's, wow. Okay. See, y'all, that's why I invited Matt here, because Matt gonna drop some gems and he gonna come with his facts. My next question is, now, let's take a little trip down memory lane. First time you voted, who was on the ballot?
So first time I voted in the presidential election would have been 2008. So it was John McCain, Barack Obama. I want to say Bob Barr was the Libertarian candidate. And then that'd be the first time that'd be the first time I voted in a presidential election. My first ever election was actually Gainesville city elections when I was in college, because I missed I wasn't 18 before the 2006 elections, when I was so the midterm elections when Rick Scott was running for governor, and I want to say, Rick Scott. I missed that first one, when I think that might have been Marco Rubio's first election.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't 18 by then. I didn't turn 18 until after that election.
I think
so
the same for me.
So yeah, my first actual election was probably Gainesville city election and the Alachua County elections.
And how did you feel in going into that moment, and in that moment, like, as a Black man in America, that we don't really hear a lot about Black men voting, right? Unless they're on a larger scale, like they're on TV, or they're a celebrity, or they're a politician themselves. We don't really hear a lot about Black men voting, or I think, in my personal experience, I haven't seen a lot of outreach to Black men. When compared to Black women, I should say. So how did you feel in that moment? What was going through your mind?
So that you're talking about the presidential election, or my first ever election?
Your first ever election, first time you voted.
It felt good. Like, I felt like an adult. And obviously I was in a brand new city. It was freshman year of college. Brand new city, registered to vote in that city, and I probably did more research on local candidates than I'd ever done before, because I didn't know anything about the city. Just trying to make sure I'm making a good decision. And a lot of people will stay, when they're off in college, they'll stay registered in their hometown. I actually ended up living in Gainesville for a while, so it was actually a good decision for me to get registered in Gainesville.
Right.
But no matter what you do, like when you're in college, some people prefer to stay registered in their hometown. Some people prefer to register where they're in school.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, it's just important because local elections they affect you. They affect you more than like the people who sit at City Hall and at the county municipal building are gonna affect you way more than the guy who's sitting in the White House.
And that segues into my next question, actually. So that's what the heart of this episode is about. It's about local politics, because the average citizen overlooks local politics, right? They do all of this big marketing and campaigning for the president. Like, I mean, just this past election, I robocalls, people calling me. I don't want any more of it. Let's dive into that a little bit. You've already kind of started, but how important are local elections and why?
I believe they're extremely important. You look at, your property taxes, your the value of your home, how much you're paying on your water bill, how much you're paying on your power bill. All of that is not decided in Washington, D.C.
Right.
That's decided, for me, Lake Worth Beach City Hall. Not some guy far off that I'll never meet. My commissioner lives right down the street from me.
Wow.
That kind of, and that's why local politics is so important, because people in Washington can get so far removed. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, her district is somewhere in San Francisco.
Right.
How often do you think she is in San Francisco?
Now, I was just reading a book, and I want to say about, like, I think it's somewhere like 20% of the time. It was like a love story, but parts of it were true. And it was like congressional members are only in their city for like 20% of the time.
Yeah,
so
they're never. Yeah, they're never at home. They're always in DC. But your commissioner, my commissioner for my district in Lake Worth is not Andy Amoroso now. He just got replaced by Kim Stokes. But like, she lives right there, so she's dealing with the same problems that I'm dealing with, or the same, things, the same good things and the same bad things that I'm dealing with.
Right.
So, making sure you're electing people that know what you're dealing with, that begins at home. That begins at the local level. You look at the coronavirus protocols. Like, none of the mandates or anything came from DC. They all came from the state and the local level.
Yep.
So anyone who likes what happened or doesn't like what happened as far as lockdowns or mandates, the people making those decisions live in your community. So that's why local elections are so important.
And that's what I hear you saying is, it matters because these people are in and of your community. They are there. They have to deal with the same laws and rules and regulations that are adopted locally. So they're not far away and they're like, it don't really affect me. They're right.
And when they screw up, it's easier to hold them accountable because they're right there.
There you go.
They're right there. Like, it's much more. There's much more accountability when you go to a city commission meeting and the person sitting on the dais with all the city commissioners is your neighbor.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And they're less likely to make decisions that adversely affect you because they're your neighbor. And where they live. Exactly. You know where they live. You know where the grocery shop. You know where the kids go to school. Like, they're less likely to make if you're paying attention. A lot of people just don't pay attention. And that's why I think local elections are extremely important.
Okay, now I did hear you mention some of the things, and which was actually one of my next questions, but I just wanted you to kind of cover again some of the things that local politics affect in our day-to-day life. Like you mentioned our water bill and the lockdowns and stuff, but what are some of the other things that are affected for us?
Here in Lake Worth, I'll use Lake Worth as an example. We have several vacant lots that, you know, city commissioners, because they didn't like the type of development that was going to happen, they wouldn't let it happen. Or, you know, we have a hotel downtown, a historic hotel, a Gulfstream Hotel. They've been talking about fixing up the hotel, and every time every time a developer comes in to, you know, do the work, they get pushed out because, that affects me because, you know, I'll go by riding my bike, or I'm downtown and there's this vacant hotel where, you know, there's people living in there, you know, doing drugs in there, you know, kids walking by there. It's, you know, it's something as small as that, or the park that's right beside my house. It's basically just an open field. Like, we could put a community garden there. We could put, you know, things like that. Like, you know, just small things, all the way up to the big things like our utility bill. We have Lake Worth, I think, has the second highest utility bills in the state of Florida.
Wow.
Because it's city owned. So the city owns the utilities. They buy power from Florida Power and Light, and then sell it back to us. Yeah, at a marked up rate. And they basically use it as a revenue stream instead of using property taxes as a revenue stream the way they're supposed to.
Wow. So everything from roads to how much money our schools get to healthcare on the local level is affected by politics, our local politics.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, you look at the Department of Education, the National Department of Education. So our Secretary of Education, like that, they don't fund schools. They fund special things at schools. So like, schools will get money for special needs programs or gifted programs or stuff like that through that. But schools are funded by your property taxes.
Right.
In the state of Florida, like a rich county like Palm Beach County doesn't even get to keep all of its property taxes that used to fund schools. Like, it gets spread out across the state to make it equitable, or as equitable as possible. So, everything is like, and so you like things that matter to you the most. You know, where that new grocery store is going, where that new mall is going, how much traffic is on our roads. That's all decided locally. That's not decided in DC, you
know. And here we are just worried about who's sitting in the White House.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, like I said, you know, so our mayor.
Why do you think, I guess this question is kind of twofold. Why do you think that the presidential election is pushed more than local elections? And why do you think people are more interested in the presidential election versus the local election?
Mainly because of the way it's presented. It's honestly almost a popularity contest now. And it's who can, you know, outwit the other guy by, you know, giving the best insult, or who can, you know, like, who can throw the most shade, who can do, like, that's pretty much what it is. So it's entertainment. Like, you know, local politics, you know, where the winner might get 2,000 votes is just not as sexy. And that's why it's pushed as much. Like, it's going to get presidential politics, get ratings, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
You know, like, that's why, like, nobody in California wants to hear about the mayor of Belgrade.
Right. Very true. Very true.
So it's a moneymaker. It's a moneymaker for the parties. It's a moneymaker for the media. It's you know, that's why it gets pushed the most. And like I said, like, local politics just isn't sexy, you know.
So in spite of all of the flyers that we get on our doors, because I live in Seminole County, and I get a bunch of flyers in my mailbox, you know, for local elections. But I show up to a local election to vote, and there might be 10 of us, maybe, and that's including the people who are taking the votes.
Exactly. Like, there's no lines for local elections. In spite of all, I mean, what do you, even a person like me who is concerned about local elections, when I get those flyers, they go right to the recycling bin. Like, I don't, you know, I don't care. Like, when it comes, you know, honestly, I think the flyers are a waste of money, but I guess it's to get their name out there, because they're not getting, obviously, any publicity. They're not even getting on the local news, you know, unless something bad happens. Unless there's a scandal. That's the only time local politicians get on the local news. Like, you know,
That's very, and I mean, then it becomes overshadowed of course, if somebody in the presidential race does something, then you just
Exactly.
don't hear about it.
And
I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
and when I say local politics, I'm not just talking about like your um mayor, city commission,
Right.
county mayor. I'm talking about like your state rep,
Yep.
your state senator, your congressional representation in Washington. You know, like it's all of those things are important. And all of those things, like how do we hold the president accountable when he does do something that affects us? It's our congressional representative. It's our two senators from the state of Florida. You know, how do we hold the governor accountable? It's
Right.
our state rep. It's our state senator. You know, that those matter too. You know, and most people can't name their congressional representative, much less their who's representing them. You know, in our case in Tallahassee.
That's
You
very true. And
know.
I as much as I love Val Demings, I don't think she is the congressional representative for my district. But I'm a big Val Demings fan, so I know she is. I know she's for Central Florida. I can't remember her
Yeah.
district number or anything, but I know she's for Central
Mhm.
Florida. But there are people that we have there, and I'll just name one that I know of because he's been in the news recently, Matt Gaetz.
Mhm.
That, you know,
Yeah, he represents like Pensacola, that area,
yeah,
that
and
district.
he is a he's a special character. But you know,
Yeah.
it's people like that that we need to know. Like he's not an advocate for felons to have the right to be able to vote, but you
Mhm.
know, he's somebody that I've read that he's gotten a DUI before while he's been, you know, our
Mhm.
representative. So it's, you know, it's people like that that you want to, you don't want them to be able to get away with something,
Mhm.
and they turn around and say, but no, my local people shouldn't be able to have that right, or you know, something like that.
Yeah,
So that's why it's so
exactly.
important. He's one reason why it's so important to have people that actually represent us in
Mhm.
office, because Florida is still very heavily Republican.
Mhm.
Florida is still very heavy Republican, which leads me into my next question. I know this is on a little bit larger scale as far as local politics. It's a state. Um, One of the big names that popped out during the presidential election was Stacey Abrams.
Mhm.
I'm a huge Stacey Abrams fan, and we saw how
Mhm.
she revolutionized voting in the state
Mhm.
of Georgia, right?
Mhm.
Um, so my question is, how did she help it? Like, I would love for you to
Mhm.
explain it because I think you're way better at it than me. How did she revolutionize voting in the South? And
Mhm.
do you think that what she did in Georgia can be done in Florida?
Mhm.
And if so, how soon do you think it'll happen or can happen?
So, like you know me, I'm a third party guy, but
Mhm.
I have so much respect for Stacey Abrams. Mainly, what she did in Georgia proves that the South doesn't have a red state problem. The South has a voter apathy problem.
Yes.
Black people don't vote.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at states like South Carolina, where was it like 30% of 38% of people are black.
Hmm.
Mississippi, where it's like 40% black population. Alabama, 30% black population. Like, most black people are Democrats.
Right.
So you get the majority of those people voting Democrat, and there are obviously white Democrats in those states too.
Right.
Like South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana should probably all be blue states.
Really?
But black people don't vote. Like, we
Well,
won't get up and go to the polls.
do you
And
think it's just because we won't get up and go vote, or
that's
do
the
you
other part
believe in
I'm
the
getting.
voter suppression?
I do think that there is some voter suppression. Like, there are, you know, there might not be enough polling places, so it
Hmm.
doesn't make it as easy to go vote, or the polls close too early, so it doesn't, you know, people aren't getting off work.
Hmm.
People might not have a car to drive far, you know, and that's so what Stacey Abrams did, and that's why it's so remarkable, and that's why I get on my conservative friends. Don't get mad at Stacey Abrams. Get you a Stacey Abrams.
Get you, yes, get you a state.
Get you a Stacey Abrams. Like, they Republicans could have had a Stacey Abrams, but they got Candace Owens instead. Like,
Oh, yeah.
like, they could, black conservatives in every single state beg their Republican parties in every state, hey, let's do more outreach in black communities. we have a message that can reach Black communities. Because the true Republican message, a true conservative message, actually is a message that a lot of Black people might resonate with. I'm not talking about Trumpism. I'm not talking about this crazy like neocon stuff. I'm talking about a true message of limited government and freedom. That's a message that a lot of Black people can resonate with, but Republicans won't do it. They won't reach out. And you know what? Democrats, and same thing happens in the Democrat Party. They just assume the Black vote.
Yes,
Like
that's
Stacey Abrams got no help from the Democrat Party.
Did not. That is very true.
Like she got no help from them.
Yep.
She did it on her own.
Yep.
Because
her and
Democrats
a bunch of local women in Atlanta.
Exactly. Like they did it themselves. Like because Democrats do the same thing. Republicans assume that Black people just aren't going to vote Republican. Democrats just assume that they have our vote.
Didn't Joe Biden say, "You ain't Black if you don't vote"?
Exactly. Like you know, that's it. That's how they feel. You know, which I think that's why I think third parties are important, because we need to scare them a little bit.
I agree. I definitely agree.
We need to scare them. They're too complacent. I mean, look at what's happening, and this is why local stuff is so important. Because look at what happened in Congress. So 2020, Congress passed, the House passed the Justice for George Floyd Act, which was basically it does some police reforms, some accountability reforms, limits the application of qualified immunity. You know, so it was a decent bill. I didn't think it went far enough, but so that passed in 2020.
Right.
And the reason why they're like, oh well, the Republicans control the Senate. That's why it didn't pass. Didn't pass the Senate. Like, well, now Democrats control the House and the Senate and the presidency.
Yep.
They could pass it right now.
Right.
But they haven't. So why not? You know, that's the thing that we get, and that's why they need to get a little scared. And that's why local stuff is so important, because you look at a state like New Mexico, where the state of New Mexico just abolished qualified immunity completely, not just police officers, every single government official. You know,
that's big.
You know, yeah. Certain cities, like what is it, the city of Baltimore, I think is just not prosecuting marijuana crimes anymore.
Yeah, that's huge, especially for brown and Black people. That's huge.
Yeah,
that's huge.
That's huge. Like that's why local stuff is so important, because we ain't getting nothing from Washington. Like they are not coming to save us.
Speaking of which, since you brought up marijuana, now I know that the voters here in Florida voted, was it last year or the year before, to allow for the recreational use of marijuana? But Florida has not legalized it yet. So
I thought we just voted to allow for medical marijuana and allow. Okay. So I thought, I don't think we voted. I think they've been trying to get that on the ballot as a constitutional amendment. The big issue in Florida, I think, was the state was like, okay, well, since you guys voted to allow medical marijuana, we're going to allow you to have it, but you can't smoke it.
Right. Yeah.
And like, so people are like, wait, no, that's just dumb. Like, you can't do that. And that's been the big fight here in Florida. And I think they finally went, okay, all right, well, I guess if we're going to allow medical marijuana, we can, you know, don't even get me started on marijuana policy. It kills me. Like all you need is a card and you can go down the street and get it. And then there's people still right there, go the opposite direction at Gun Club Road, in jail for it.
Yeah, that's that I definitely agree with. Now I saw New York was one of the latest states actually to allow for the recreational use of marijuana. They're like, the cops can't search your car if they smell it. And I think they are going through cases right now to see whose record they can take it off of and let out of jail for.
Yeah. I'll say if you just in jail for the plant, you don't need to be there. You know, if you're in jail because you killed somebody because of the plant, then that's a whole different story. Yeah.
Now, Portland made all drugs.
That's where I'm at.
I mean,
I don't do any drugs. I don't do any drugs. But people should not be in jail for things for who is who is someone hurting other than themselves if they shoot up heroin?
I agree.
You shouldn't be in jail for things that you like. Did you hurt anybody else?
I agree.
If you hurt somebody else, then you need to be in jail. If you stole from somebody, you need to be in jail.
Right.
But if you just hurting yourself, like, who cares?
And I think that's more of a medical issue. That's not an issue to be in jail for.
And that's another thing. That's where local politics come in. Like, you know, I made a Facebook post about jury nullification. Like, local people are always trying to get out of jury duty. Serve on juries, because you know what you can. Just because someone committed a crime against the state, you know, which basically that's what marijuana laws are. It's not a crime against another person, it's a crime against the state. Doesn't mean that a jury has to convict them.
Right.
A jury can just say, no, like, we're not convicting them.
Yep.
And then that person gets off. Like that, and that's where local stuff, you know, comes in. A cop, you know, a sheriff can just decide to not enforce the law. I mean, you look at it, they did it with the mask mandates up in Polk County. The sheriff was like, I'm not enforcing the mask mandate.
Yep.
So like if they can do that, then the sheriff can also say, we're not enforcing marijuana laws.
And I've actually heard that about the sheriff in Palm Beach County, Rick Bradshaw, I believe is his name, that he said basically before this became like a big thing, once CBD became legalized in the state of Florida, he was like, he told his cops, don't bother with them, because you can't tell the difference between CBD and marijuana. You know, something that just has CBD or just has THC, you can't tell the difference, and that's wasting resources. So don't bother with them. So
wasting resources on someone that's not violent.
They're not violent. And it definitely, you know, it really, that when things like that happen, it really is it's a problem for Black and brown people, because we're the ones who are mostly affected by those types of laws, right? So that's I'm an advocate for marijuana. Shout out to who's it, Morgan and Morgan, like he is working his butt off to make it happen. So,
exactly, like, and you know, less laws mean less run-ins with the cops, which means less police brutality. You know, that solves. We get rid of, you know, some of these drug laws, that solves like half our police brutality problem right there.
No, I never looked at it that way. Less laws, less running with the police, less police brutality. Although I still think a lot of them would just see us and be like, today's Tuesday.
And some of them will, but like it's just as simple as that. Like, they have less things to enforce, then there's going to be less run-ins, you know.
I can respect that. So my next question would be, since we've kind of talked about this a little bit, are there any new bills, resolutions, any new things for the state of Florida that we should keep our eye on? So
this riot act that DeSantis is pushing right now, it's like every time I want to give DeSantis a round of applause, he does something that makes me want to just punch him in the face. This right, like, is basically trying to make protesting illegal.
Right.
So that's something that we need to look out for. There was one my sister was telling me about. Now I can't even remember. I should have wrote it down. Because, you know, my sister works actually for the Democrats in the Senate in Tallahassee. Like, she's a lawyer for the. So I get a lot of times when I don't understand something, I'm like, all right, what's this about? What y'all doing?
Shout out to Matt Letha. Let me just plug her. Shout out to her. I saw her commercial. Big shout out to Mug City for doing big things. Hats off to Matt Letha. Yes,
absolutely. But yeah, the biggest one right now, I think, is that riot act, because it basically turns pretty much any protest into a riot. In the eyes of the law. Like, you know, you block traffic, it's a riot. It's just making it harder to protest. So if you can't protest and you can't hold your government, you can't call attention to your government, and hold them accountable. And that's a big thing. That is a First Amendment right that is in the Bill of Rights, the right to petition the government. And that's what a protest is. It's an appeal to government's petition. So making that harder,
Mhm.
It's not a good thing. Like,
Right.
you know, people are like, well, it's to cut down on the. I don't believe in destroying people's property. I don't
Agreed.
believe in. But the problem is, this doesn't just stop that. You know.
Agreed. Yep, I agree. And I will say that now, I guess my feelings are just a little, I guess,
Mm,
kind of all over the place. I don't encourage people to vandalize other people's property,
mhm,
right? But in the wake of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and all the recent,
mhm,
killings we've had, I've seen some people like tear up Target and stuff like that in their local towns. And I was
mhm.
like, I'm not necessarily mad because these people come here and take all of our money. And then when
Well,
it comes time to hold the government accountable, because they get to sit in on these meetings, like think about like here in Florida, Publix gets to sit
mhm,
in with DeSantis.
mhm.
So
Yep.
I wouldn't necessarily, I'm not encouraging it,
Yeah.
people out there. I just wouldn't be mad.
The way I saw it was like, it's like, I don't endorse it, but I understand it.
I understand. And I used to be so anti. I used to
Now,
be like,
I
don't
just
tear up stuff.
yeah, I just wish they would, if they're gonna riot, burn down like City Hall or something like that.
Burn down, get to the first Sallie Mae building you can
Yeah,
find and
exactly. Like,
burn her down.
burn down the tax office or something like
Yeah,
that. Like,
like they never go for the right places.
yeah, exactly.
But I'm not
But like,
necessarily mad though when they
and
do it because I get it.
I understand. It's like one of those things. Like, I understand it. I don't like it, but you know, I get it. That
Right.
there's an anger there. There's a desire to just get back, get even.
Right.
Because some bad stuff has happened to us in the name of government.
Yep.
And that desire to get even is there.
Yep.
And like I said, I don't like it. And then the other thing was like, somebody, a lot of times on the news, you'll hear, oh, they're burning down their own neighborhoods. It's like, we don't own nothing in our neighborhood.
It ain't even ours.
We don't, exactly, it ain't even ours. People come in and bought up all of our stuff or took it years ago and they kept it in their family, and it ain't ours.
Very much so. Very much so. I agree. So, um, anyone you're looking forward to running, even if they haven't announced it yet, anybody you're looking forward to running in the next governor race?
So my current favorite in the next governor race,
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like, I've been looking, trying to see who's even thinking about running. The only person I know who is running is Ron DeSantis. Like, I don't
So
even know.
I've seen a few. I mean, of course, they're saying that Val is hinting at doing it.
Mhm,
I've read a few places that Charlie Chris may even
mhm,
run again. And there is a young, I believe she's an Asian woman. I cannot remember her name, and I thought I wrote it in my notes.
mhm,
But they're saying that she is possibly
mhm,
gonna be in the running. So
mhm. Yeah, I was
I
like, I mean, I'm a member of the Libertarian Party, and I haven't seen anything about any libertarians running, at least for governor.
yeah.
Um, so it's gonna be one to watch because Ron DeSantis is wildly popular in this state. Like, people underestimate how popular he is.
But I think
Uh,
it's because it's we're lacking. We need our Stacey Abrams, right? I think
mhm,
that's the only reason why. Because was it was like Largo, Florida, or something like that. I can't think of the county, but they were blue for the presidential election. And let me tell you, I've been through that county a lot of times. I did
mhm,
not expect for them to be Democratic. Like it was Trump territory through and through. And they
mhm,
flipped blue for this last election.
mhm.
And it was a few other little counties that surprised me because I love the CNN, map when they do it and they show. So it was very shocking to me. A few other
Mhm,
counties in Florida that were blue, and I was like, wait, what? Like,
mhm,
but I think it's because we're lacking our Stacey Abrams. We don't know
mhm,
who that person is yet. But I do think that with the large population of immigrants here, just people, or I shouldn't say immigrants because immigrants don't vote. So y'all Republicans chill
mhm,
out and people not voting. I should say we have a large population here that I think between young people, like think about all the colleges. I always think like, okay, most of the time colleges signify more forward thinking people. At least I hope. I always think like that. And I think, okay, Florida has to be able to flip blue. It has to. All the colleges we got here, all the young people. Now Disney World mean we gotta be blue.
Well, it's it's funny because I just don't see Florida becoming a majority blue state anytime soon. Even if a Democrat wins the governorship, I don't. Our state house and our state senate will still be, will still be red. I just don't. I don't see it. So what I think a good course of action is getting good. There are good Republicans like Adam Putnam, who was in a primary race against Ron DeSantis. I thought was a great candidate for governor. And he lost out to Ron DeSantis because, Trump fever, like people, were going crazy over that. But I thought, Adam Putnam was a good, solid Republican who could do a lot of great things in the state of Florida. Had good sound environmental policy, had good sound education policy, So, and I think that could help. Now, it's hard to primary an incumbent.
Right.
It's just impossible. Like people don't even know, like Donald Trump had primary challengers. People don't even know that. Bill Weld and Joe Rogan ran against Donald Trump in the 2020 Republican primary. Like, so that's how hard it is to primary an incumbent. It's like people just don't even know. I think that could help. That also helps. That also makes candidates run more towards the center instead of running too far left, too far right. It makes them stick towards the center, because you go too far left or too far right, it's not gonna work out. Like, I agree. It's just not gonna work out. You go too far left, you end up with like high taxes and like crazy problems like California, New York have. You go too far right and you end up with like Oklahoma and Arizona. Like,
California, you were so high.
It's so expensive. But like, and that's the thing, like just, pushing candidates to run towards this. And there are some things we need to be progressive on and hold the line, like police accountability, qualified immunity. Like that's one thing I'm not letting go. Like qualified immunity needs to go away.
I agree, definitely.
But there's other things that we can compromise on. We can talk about when it comes to schools, instead of funding school systems, funding students. Like have that conversation. Those are things that we can meet in the middle on when it comes to infrastructure and not destroying entire minority communities to build high-speed rail right through the middle of their communities.
Right.
We can have those conversations. We want high-speed rail, but do we want to destroy Little Haiti in Miami to do it?
Absolutely.
Wow. So it's those are the types of things like that. Another post I made, it's like we all want the same things. We want people to be happy. We want them to be healthy, and we want them to be prosperous. But you have to, like, there's different ways of getting there, and we need to talk about those different ways. And it's not about left or right. Just because an idea sounds like it's coming from the right doesn't mean that it's an idea that will only benefit people on the right. It could be something that benefits everybody. Same thing with the stuff on the left. So just having genuine conversations like that, and that's another reason local stuff is important, because you can have those conversations. You can talk about that, and you can get up and say stuff at the city commission meeting, and those people have to listen to you.
They do.
I can email Rick Scott all I want to, but all I'm going to get is an auto reply. He's not going to invite me to come have a sit down with him.
Unless you make it to the news and then he's like, yeah, I invite you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as we wrap up here, for people who are listening in, how do you recommend they get more involved with their local politics, even if it's not election season? How do you recommend that they just kind of get there and start digging their hands in?
Number one, watch the local news and read the local news. Like I try to subscribe to one local newspaper, one national newspaper, and one international. Your local news reports on things that are happening in your community. if we don't watch it, you're never gonna know anything about it.
Right.
The other thing is, go to your city commission meetings, or now they're all on Zoom. You don't have to go anywhere.
Yep.
It's all on Zoom.
That's very true.
City commission meetings, planning and zoning board, those things happen right there. Or if you don't want to go to the meeting, the minutes are usually posted on the city website. You can go and read. You can go Control F and search for keywords in the minutes. Like those are some of the best ways to get involved locally. When it comes to state stuff, I can't remember the website off the top of my head, but there's stuff that there's websites that literally just watch what's happening in Tallahassee. That stuff like that. So just open your mind to new news sources. If you're getting all your news on Facebook, you're probably not getting the right stuff. If you're getting all your, even on Reddit, like you're getting national stuff, you're getting international stuff, you're not getting the local stuff. And we need to pay attention to what's happening locally. And I think the older I get, the more I'm like, I want to buy a house. I want to, all these local things affect me. Everything that's happening here is affecting me,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Matt, again, I appreciate you so very much for being a part of this conversation. I hope it sparks something. I hope the people that listen in, I hope they want to get involved, because our local politics are so very important. And especially for people who have kids that are in public schools, like it is super, super, or the roads in your community look trash, or trash pickup isn't happening, where that's localized. So we need to be a part of the local conversation just as much as we need to be a part of the national conversation.
And it's not going to be easy. Like,
right.
We just had a local election here in Lake Worth, and there were 3 to 4 candidates for each seat on the city commission, plus mayor. In each one of those categories, I couldn't even find information on at least one person in each one. I couldn't even find anything. So it's not going to be easy. Like, you have to do some digging. Like, it's going to take work. But like I said, starting with local news, like, if you live in Palm Beach County, watch Channel 5, Channel 12, Channel 25, or what's the 29, or get a subscription to the Palm Beach Post or the Sun Sentinel, so that way you and actually read it. And you can have it set so that like it sends you notification for local stuff. You can set the app for that. So that's the biggest thing. Just, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to do a lot more work to find out where your county mayor stands on a certain issue than you would have to do to find out where Joe Biden stands on a certain issue. Absolutely. And I think that's what turns people off. It's just harder.
Can we count on you to be a Gary Chambers Jr. of Florida anytime soon? I love Gary Chambers Jr. I love the way I don't know that lady's last name, but he called Connie out the entire time. Remember the lady that was sitting at the commission meeting and she was shopping online and he was recording her the whole time? He was already very active in local politics, and I think he's in like Louisiana or a city very close. And very, very big advocate for Black and brown people there, and just very huge into politics there. And he's finally running for office. So can we count on you anytime soon?
I'm thinking about it as far as city commission. I'm thinking about it. We'll see.
Well, count me in to come and help you campaign. And I mean that. Count me in. I will come knock on doors. I'm sure whatever you would be standing up for or agenda you would be pushing, I'm sure I could get behind it. So Matt, let the people know where they can find you, how they can reach you if they have any questions.
So either on Facebook, just my name, Matthew Fuller Jr. And then I have a Twitter account, M Fuller. I think it's at M Fuller 1154. And then, you can always shoot me if you got a question. You can shoot me a message on Facebook. If I don't know the answer, I know I can find somebody who does.
And yes, you will go find the answer, because listen, you was definitely the secret weapon on Travante's.
I just like, people always like, man, you're so smart. It's like, no, I'm not smart. I just know where to find smart people and know where to find smart answers. Like that's all it takes. Just
And the
knowing how.
almighty Google is a good starting point
Uh-huh.
sometimes. The almighty Google. Well,
You start there, then you verify what you read on there, and you'll be fine.
and you can go on from there. Well, y'all, I appreciate y'all for tuning in to the Gift of Gab today. I hope that you understand that politics after the president is super, super important. Thank you again to our guests. And of course, I am your host, Gab. And like I always say, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Peace.